I've heard Christians ask sometimes, what's the best evidence for Christianity? As people are getting into apologetics, I think it's a natural question, what's the best apologetic argument we can make? What's the argument that is going to be the most convincing? What's the best approach, the best method, the best whatever that we can present to someone else who's not a Christian that's going to open their eyes to the truth of the Christianity? It's almost as though, it kind of reminds me of like a mystery movie. The whole movie, all these characters are going through, they're looking for that one thing, that smoking gun, that one piece of evidence that's going to help explain everything. And once we find this, it'll open everyone's mind to the point where it's indisputable. Now everyone agrees what the answer to the mystery was. I can tell you what my favorite apologetic approaches are, the evidence that means something to me. I like thinking about the creation of the universe. I like looking at all the little science of philosophical little evidences that would suggest that there's a creator that existed before this universe that created everything, and that person would be God. And I like thinking about things like the lives of the apostles, that they lived in a way that really suggests that they really believed that all the things they were saying was really true. I like those things. And so for me, if I get a chance to talk about those things, if there's a non-believer, even another Christian who starts talking about these topics, I'm going to be really animated. I'll probably talk their ear off about these areas because that's the stuff that I'm personally interested in. But I think the thing is that the non-believer, the non-Christian, they're like me. They have things that they're interested in too. Each person that I might reach, that I might talk to, they might all have a different thing that stands between them and the faith decision, between them and belief in God. If I go to every person and I talk their ear off about what I think is a great evidence, I talk about the creation of the universe and how there must have been a creator who transcends this world. There just must have been. And I make an extremely compelling argument. I talk about all the evidences. But that person doesn't even care if there's a creator or not. That person's more bothered by the fact that Christians are hypocrites, that there's sin in the church. Well, I might have made a great argument, but I've essentially wasted my time because the thing I spent all my time talking about is not important at all to the person I'm speaking to. So this should compel me, rather than thinking about the arguments, what's the best argument, what's the one thing I need to study the most, this should actually encourage me to study the person I'm talking to. See, I think it's less about the argument or what I want to say and more about what that person is actually struggling with. What's the actual roadblock that's between them and God? If I don't take the time to learn that, if I just learn the best argument, the best method, and I just stick to my guns no matter what, I'm going to miss a lot of people along the way who have totally different issues or different interests. I've talked to Christians, people I agree with, and I've heard arguments that they've made, and as a Christian, I've thought, man, that's kind of a lame argument. Doesn't do anything for me. But for them, that was the one that they're the most interested in learning and talking about. And the non-believer is that way too. So it's less about learning the best evidence in my mind and more about learning what's the best evidence in their mind. What is it that they're struggling with, and what is it that I can present to them? Or how can I present the evidence to them in a way that they hear it? A way that speaks to them where they are at. Every person on their approach to God has certain walls up that as a Christian we might be able to take away or reduce if we can approach it in the right way. So I want us to think a little bit less about the apologetic approach, the apologetic argument in and of itself, and more about the person we're speaking to. One of the beautiful things about Christianity is that there's not just one reason to believe it. The Christian opinion is not the Bible exists, therefore you must believe it, and it all, rests on your accepting of the Bible just so we can get started. The Christianity rather, is supported by so many different lines of evidence. There's so many reasons to think that Christianity is an accurate depiction of reality that we don't need to just start in the same place. You know, I can approach God through the lens of, hey, there is a creator. The lives of the apostles are compelling. The existence of morality is very important to me, that this suggests that there's a moral lawgiver. But the next person over can approach God through the ideas that there's historical evidence to suggest the Bible is true, that there's philosophical reasons to believe that a God must exist. We can all approach God from a different angle because there's so many different evidences, so many different lines of argument, and they all suggest that the God of the Bible exists. They all point in the same general direction. They all point to God, but we can approach it from different ways. This is a beautiful thing about Christianity. So I don't want us to get too hung up on, this is the one argument, this is the best argument, this is the one I'm going to use every time. How would I approach this person? You know, if I'm thinking about a hypothetical person, tomorrow I'm going to meet someone that I'm going to go, I'm going to end up being in a doctor's office, and there's going to be somebody there who's having some type of crisis, and I'm going to have an opportunity to talk to them about God. What's the one thing I want to say to them? I don't know if I know that right now. Maybe I should, in that moment, get to know something about them that's going to help me know what they need to hear from me in that moment. I got to rely on God to help me in that moment figure out what they need to hear. So let's have a robust approach. Let's try to learn a number of different evidences so that when we finally get the chance to talk to somebody, hopefully whatever they're struggling with, we'll have something that we can say to them that they can hear, that's meaningful to them, that's going to move them a little bit closer to that eventual faith decision.